Hey guys, it's Shadow the Rat, and for today's video, I'm going to go ahead and do an introduction of all 12 of my rats. Now, I've been waiting to make this video for a while, simply because I needed to get out my last intro video on my newest rat. However, now that that is out, I can go ahead and make a video on everyone. Okay, so I'm going to be making this video in descending order of who I've had longest to shortest. But before I get into that, just know that I currently have 12 girls. They all live together, and they range in age from 4 months to nearly 2 years and 9 months. Okay, so starting out, we have my oldest girl, which is my dwarf rat Toast. So Toast is a black variegated Dumbo dwarf. Black variegated is her color and pattern. Then Dumbo means that the ears are on the side of her head, and dwarf means that she doesn't produce as much growth hormone as other rats, and as such she has stayed pretty small, although she has gained a little bit of chunk with age, as is kind of common with rats. Anyways, I got Toast from a breeder in North Carolina. I live in Virginia, but they met me about halfway, so that was really nice. And I got Toast with her late sister Butter when they were about, I want to say 9 or 10 weeks old. And both of them gave me a pretty good experience with what was pretty much my first real breeder rats. I did have some rats prior to them that were kind of from a breeder, but it was a pretty different situation. So these girls were my first kind of traditional breeder experience. And the main reason I got them was because I wanted to try having dwarf rats after having standard female rats for a long time. Because standard female rats are unfortunately very prone to tumors, specifically intact standard female rats over the age of about 1.5 years. But with dwarf rats, both sexes are extremely tumor resistant. Well, that is to certain types of tumors, but that includes most mammary tumors. So as a result, dwarf rats almost never develop mammary tumors. And again, as someone who's mainly had standard intact female rats, I really wanted to experience that. So that's why I got Toast and Butter. And both girls very much lived up to this no mammary tumor thing. Although, unfortunately, Butter wasn't quite as lucky as her sister, because when she was 2 years and 3 months, she developed a pituitary gland tumor, which is a type of brain tumor. And even though she initially responded some to meds, unfortunately, she didn't respond super well, and she ended up passing away from it. But she was still on the older side, and even though she didn't live quite as long as I was hoping for with dwarf rats, she still had a very good life with me, and she was definitely a very sweet and friendly rat. As far as Toast goes, the only health issue she's ever had was that when I first got her, I was told by the breeder that she had a little lump on her stomach, and they thought it was an umbilical hernia. And these hernias don't technically have to be repaired. Rats will occasionally develop them when the mother grooms off the umbilical cord and they're too rough, and they accidentally nick the abdominal wall. But usually these hernias will either completely heal as the rat grows, or they will just never cause issues, even if they stick around when the rat is an adult. However, because Toast is a dwarf rat and therefore is quite small, and was even smaller as a baby, I didn't feel comfortable leaving the hernia, and so I decided to go the preventative care route and have it repaired by my vet. And the breeder was very nice, and they reimbursed me for both of the girls, so that was pretty nice. But anyways, yeah, once that got repaired, Toast has had 0 other health issues. She's been extremely healthy, and even though she is quite old for a rat now, she has not shown any signs of aging or slowing down. But other than that, she is just completely healthy, active. She has 0 idea that she's getting older. She still bosses around my younger rats, so she definitely seems like she is still doing extremely well, and I'm hoping she'll be around for a while yet. As far as personality goes, Toast is a very independent rat. She's very sweet and very tolerant. Like, she has no problem being handled or pet, but she does like to go do her own thing, and she really enjoys interacting with the other rats most. She's kind of more of a rat's rat, more than a people rat, that is. Her sister Butter was more of a kind of people rat, and even though Toast has, again, no issues interacting with people, being handled, or so forth, she definitely seems to get more out of interacting with the other rats, which, you know, that's just kind of her personality. She is a very sweet rat, though. She's a lot of fun to train with. Well, she is fun to train with now. When she was younger, she had the worst attention span I've ever seen in a rat. But now that she's older, she actually has a pretty decent attention span, and she knows all sorts of tricks. So yeah, that's pretty much Toast. She's a very sweet rat, and I'm very glad that she's still around, even though I do wish her late sister Butter, of course, was still around as well. But Toast is definitely doing the living for both of them because she is very much enjoying bossing around the younger rats. And she just is very much living her old age to the fullest. Anyways, that is Toast's story. So moving on to my next rats, we have my girls Popcorn, Tofu, and Raisin. So Popcorn's variety is Golden Siamese. Raisin's variety is a werewolf, well, specifically a black Berkshire Dumbo werewolf. However, werewolf fur basically means that the rat is always growing and losing fur in different patterns. So you can never really tell that she has the Berkshire pattern or that she's completely covered in black fur genetically, except for her stomach, because she's pretty much always mostly hairless with like stripes of black fur running through her, and they change on a weekly basis, as just happens with werewolf rats. And then finally we have Tofu, and Tofu is my recessive hairless, and she's genetically a Himalayan or Siamese, I believe Siamese. And I just know this because when I got her, she still had a little fur on her nose, and I could see a light point, but now that she's older, she is a completely pink potato. That is to say, she does not have any fur except her whiskers and eyelashes. Anyways, I got these three girls from a different breeder in Virginia, and I specifically went to this breeder because I wanted to get a werewolf rat, which is again what Raisin is. And I wanted to go to a breeder for Raisin because I knew that werewolf rats can be prone to certain health issues if the breeder isn't very careful with selecting away from them. So specifically, werewolf rats can be prone to entropion, which is when the eyelashes grow inwards and basically cause awful pain and ulcerations to the eye. It's just really awful. So that's why when I went to get Raisin, I actually followed the breeder for about a year prior, because I wanted to make sure that their werewolves were actually healthy. I was initially only going to get Popcorn and Raisin, however I noticed they had hairless, and hairless was another variety that I wanted at some point, but I wanted to get from a breeder because, like with werewolf, they can be prone to certain health issues if you aren't selecting away from them. So when I saw that they had some hairless at the same time as some werewolf, I decided to get all three girls. So yeah, I haven't had any issues with either my hairless girl or my werewolf girl or my Siamese girl, but that wasn't really a worry. But yeah, I'm very glad that I decided to go to a breeder for my first experience with werewolf and hairless, because I have definitely seen some horror stories with these guys, and I feel really bad for the rats in those situations because, you know, obviously they didn't ask to be bred like that. And I also think it gives these varieties a bad name because people see what backyard breeding does to these varieties, and then they think that they're just completely unethical, when you very much can breed them to be consistently healthy and well-tempered, but it just takes a little extra work. Anyways, these girls are all about 1 year and 9 months, so they are exactly 1 year younger than Toast. In fact, they share the same birthday as her. Well, kind of. As you can probably tell, these girls are not from the same litter. They just met very young, right before I got them at 9 weeks old. But yeah, even though they're not from the same litter, they are all born just a few days apart. So they're all around 1 year and 9 months, and all have their birthdays around the same time as Toast, who is, of course, 1 year older than them. Anyways, as far as personalities go, Popcorn is very independent. She's a very sweet rat and very tolerant, just like Toast. But she is definitely one of those rats who prefers to do her own thing, like even more than Toast. She doesn't even really engage with the other rats too much. Like, she enjoys snuggling with them, but she's a very chill girl when it comes to just kind of vibing. She just likes to vibe. That's what she does most of the time, either vibe or nap. I was very surprised at how chill Popcorn turned out. Actually, as soon as she was like 6 months old, she just started vegging out. It's kind of hilarious. Initially, I was kind of concerned, like, oh my gosh, why is this female rat kind of getting so chill? But no, nothing's wrong with her. She's just chill. That's just how she is. So yeah, that's kind of how Popcorn is. She has learned a lot of fun tricks, but honestly, she probably knows the least tricks out of most of my rats because she's just such a chill rat that she kind of prefers to nap and just vibe instead of really doing anything too active. She does really like basketball though, so that's kind of interesting because that involves a lot of moving around, but she really likes it. That's like the only trick that she will do for like 10, 15, 20 minutes, although I usually don't train more than 10 minutes, just because she is very obsessed with it, and I honestly can't tell you why it's basketball that she likes so much, but I do find it pretty funny. Anyways, moving on to the next girl, Tofu. Tofu is very chill, just like Popcorn. She, again, is one of these female rats that is just like super lazy, which is really weird for me to say because female rats have this stereotype for staying crazy active their whole lives. As someone who really likes to do training with my rats, I really love the energy that most female rats have all their life. So having both Tofu and Popcorn turn out very chill was definitely kind of strange for me. Tofu is a little bit more into kind of interacting with you, although she is again very independent. She doesn't really like being picked up quite as much as like hopping onto your hand, although she doesn't mind it. Like you can scoop her up and she won't back away or anything like that. But I always get the feeling that she would prefer to hop onto your hand herself, and she is very consistent at hopping on your hand if you offer it. So that's what I usually do for her because, again, she seems to like that. But yeah, she likes to come over and just kind of chill on my lap sometimes or on my shoulder. And she's a little bit more into training than Popcorn, but she is also very lazy. I feel bad for calling her lazy, but there's really no other way to put it. She's just a very lazy, chill rat, which is the same with Popcorn. And they kind of like to go and nap after exploring for like 10-15 minutes. Then they go and nap for most of free range. And they've been doing this since they were like 6 months old. So they are just a very chill and kind of low energy girls, but you know, it's kind of nice having that balance because I do have some very crazy energetic rats in the group. And then finally we have Raisin, and Raisin is definitely the most energetic out of all 3 girls. She is also the most human oriented of the 3 girls. She's very sweet. She likes to be with you. She likes to be picked up. She likes to be held. She likes to chill under your blanket. She's just a very sweet and human oriented rat. She was extremely playful when she was younger, but I'd say once she reached about a year of age, she chilled out a bit. Definitely not nearly as much as Popcorn and Tofu, and Raisin still highly prefers doing active tricks, whereas her 2 sisters do not like active tricks very much. Well, they like basketball, but they don't like agility, so that's a pretty funny thing to see as someone who, again, has had mainly active rats. So usually active rats are like obsessed with agility, whereas more kind of chill rats tend to like the more in-place tricks that don't require quite as much movement. Anyways, like I said, Raisin is the most active and human-oriented rat of her and her sisters. But yeah, she's just a very sweet rat. She does have one fault, unfortunately, which is that she is a real pain to introduce to other rats. I hate to say it, but introducing her to other rats is just such an ordeal. She just unfortunately gets very overwhelmed very quickly, but once she accepts another rat, then she is super chill with them, super tolerant. They can do literally anything to her and she will be completely fine with it. But the time that it takes to introduce her to other rats is a bit of a downside. I actually just finished up my latest intro with her and it took 5 weeks to introduce my newest rat to her. But she is finally at the point where she can live with pumpkin seed, no problem. So I am very happy about that. But yeah, that's definitely a bit of a downside to Raisin. Her sisters, on the other hand, accept new rats, no problem. So kind of funny to see how that worked out. Anyways, yeah, Raisin's just a very sweet and social rat. And I really love interacting with her. She is just such a joy to be around. So I'm going to move on to my next rats now, which are my girls Coffee, Crumb, and Cracker. So these are 3 of my newer girls, and I actually got them only this past summer, I believe in July, I want to say, and they are from a pet store litter. Basically, someone accidentally bought a pregnant pet store rat, and of course, rats have a lot of babies, so they ended up having to rehome some of them. And I have to say, these girls are honestly some of the best tempered rats I've ever had, and it's kind of crazy to me because I've had other rats from this pet store that their mom came from, and they honestly had pretty poor temperaments. Like, they were very skittish and also cage aggressive, so not exactly ideal. But these 3 girls, on the other hand, are like the complete opposite. They are what I consider some of the best tempered rats I've ever had, because they are just so sweet, so human oriented. I mean, all 3 of them, and just so much fun to train with. They're so playful. They're just really amazing rats. And I just don't know. I really got lucky with them because honestly, when I got them, I wasn't planning on it. And it was definitely a good decision. Like, I am just so happy I took this chance because they are incredible rats. As far as variations go, they're very much kind of your standard variations. Cracker is a Black Berkshire Dumbo Rex. Crumb is a Russian Blue Berkshire Rex. And Coffee is a Agouti Berkshire Rex. And yeah, like I was saying, they are all extremely sweet rats. Of the 3, I think that Crumb probably has what I would consider the most perfect pet temperament in a rat ever, because she is extremely playful. She is insanely tolerant. Like, she is the rat I introduce people to because she will win them over immediately. She just immediately goes limp like a ragdoll cat. when you handle her. She comes up to you and gives you kisses. She loves to groom people. Like, she'll come over and groom you for like 10 minutes at a time. She's super into hand wrestling. She absolutely loves that. She loves to chase things around. So like if you wave a cat toy around, she'll go and chase it. She enjoys trick training. She's very easy to train. She's just kind of an all-around perfect rat. And she is just the kind of rat that I feel like anyone who breeds rats should be aiming for temperament-wise. It is kind of ironic that my rats with the best temperaments, I think currently, are mainly these girls that are not from breeders. All my other current rats are from breeders. Although I do have 2 other rats I'm going to talk about that have exceptional temperaments that are from a breeder. But I do think it's kind of funny that these 3 girls that I got on a whim, instead of kind of planned like I usually do with my breeder rats, ended up being such amazing rats. But yeah, like I was saying, Crumb is just a really great all-around rat. Then we have Cracker, and Cracker is what I consider the best temperament in a rat. Like, for me, I don't think she has maybe the perfect temperament for everyone, because she is a little bit more anxious than Crumb. She needed a little bit longer to warm up to handling, and she can be a little bit fearful of new things. But the thing that I love is that she is insanely focused and motivated. Like, training with her is just so dang easy. I have only had a handful of rats out of nearly 70 rats that have given me this sort of amazing ease when it comes to training like Cracker has. Like, she reminds me so much of Shadow, and also my past girls, Oreo, Bean, Donut, Olive, just all my rats that were the easiest to train with, and consequently some of my favorite rats because I absolutely love training with them. So finding a rat who also absolutely loves training is just a really big win for me. It's definitely something I love to do with all my rats and they all enjoy it. But some rats are definitely very into it. And that's definitely one of the things that I personally love to see in rats. But yeah, Cracker's a little bit more anxious than Crumb, but once she gets dialed into something like training, she's just so insanely focused. It's incredible. She is also one of my most energetic rats, and if you don't do something like training with her to kind of mentally stimulate her, she will go and find her own fun. She can be kind of destructive, and she's very good about getting out of pretty much anything you put her in. But again, if you kind of funnel that into something like training, then she is incredible at that. And once she's gotten some of her kind of mental energy out doing something like training, after that she's very good about just kind of chilling and running around and enjoying herself without trying to cause mischief. So definitely one of my most high energy rats ever, but I really love that about her, and she is one of my heart rats for sure. And that brings me to Coffee, and Coffee is kind of a blend of her 2 sisters. She is very social and sweet and playful, but she also has a little bit of a high-strung side, kind of like Cracker. Coffee is a lot of fun to do things like trick training with, but she is a little bit less focused than Cracker, and she tends to kind of wander off if you don't make training engaging enough. But if you do, she picks up things extremely quickly. So she's another of my rats that I really enjoy training with. Coffee is also extremely playful, both with humans and with other rats. She's constantly bouncing around and just playing with everyone. She can be a bit of a bully sometimes, a little pushy with new rats, but she accepts them a lot quicker than Raisin. And generally, she is pretty good about kind of not overdoing it, which is especially good because she is one of my largest rats. But yeah, she's a very sweet rat, and like I said, I'm very glad that I took a chance on her and her sisters. So that brings me to my newest 5 rats, and those are my girls Pistachio, Carrot, Jelly Bean, Cinnamon, and Pumpkin Seed. So I'm going to talk about the first 4 girls first, simply because Pumpkin Seed has a slightly different story than them. Anyways, all 5 of these girls come from a breeder that is located in Virginia, and I was originally only supposed to get 2 of them. And specifically, I was supposed to get 2 dwarfs. However, the breeder believed that she had 3 dwarfs available at the time, 3 dwarf females, that is. So it was definitely quite a while being on that kind of wait list. It wasn't even really a wait list. Most rat breeders don't really do wait lists in the US, as far as I can tell. But anyways, like I was saying, I kind of told her that I was looking for dwarfs and hoping to get them from her, and she breeds both dwarfs and standards. However, she mostly breeds standards, so dwarfs are kind of a occasional thing. So I was fine with waiting. That's why I contacted her so early, because I knew that I wanted to add some eventually. So when it kind of came time to add them, and when she told me that she believed she had 3 available, I asked her if it was possible for me to get all 3 because, well, I have a bit of a rat addiction. Okay, it sounds like a bad thing, but I do have more than enough room, space, resources, and so forth for more rats. And I really wanted to have more dwarfs in my group, so the idea of getting 3 dwarfs made me pretty happy. And the breeder told me that that was just fine, and everything seemed to be pretty fine up until the day that I went to pick them up. Well, unfortunately, the day I went to pick up all 3 girls, I came to 4 rats. That is to say, when I came there, the breeder unfortunately told me that one of the girls had passed away, and she was offering me a choice between 2 other rats as a sort of replacement. Now, one thing I noticed pretty quickly was that of these 4 rats, 2 of them look to be standards, just in my opinion, but I don't have a ton of experience with dwarfs, so I kind of gave the breeder the benefit of doubt. And of the other 2, one was definitely a dwarf. Like, she had the right proportions, and her eyes were just very clearly dwarf. Like, a lot of dwarfs have bigger eyes than usual for their body size, and this girl definitely displayed that trait, so I could tell she was definitely a dwarf. And then the third girl was a little younger than everyone else, but she was quite small, so I thought she was a dwarf, although that was later disproved. Anyways, I ended up deciding to take all 4 girls, which the breeder was fine with. So I got all 4 girls and came back, and a few weeks go by, and I noticed that not only did the 2 girls that I thought were kind of suspiciously standard size looking end up growing a lot and were clearly standards, but one of the other 2 girls that I got, which was the runty girl that was a bit younger than everyone else, well, she had also grown a ton, and I mean a ton. Like, I would not have recognized it was the same rat if I wasn't the one literally watching her grow. So it was very clear to me that I had ended up with 3 standards and 1 dwarf. Now, I mentioned before that I mainly wanted dwarfs because of the health benefits, and that is still true. So I had no problem with 3 of them being standards, and I still think they're amazing rats. But I did feel a little bit bad for my one girl who was a dwarf because she was not going to have any similar size buddies. And dwarf rats live just fine with standard rats. Personally, I have been keeping dwarfs and standards together since I got my first dwarf rats over 2.5 years ago, and the dwarfs have consistently ruled the cage and never had any issues with standards. However, that being said, I do still feel like ideally that dwarf rats should have 1 similar size buddy, or more, but at least 1 similar size buddy is nice. And so in the case of Jellybean, which was the girl who ended up being a dwarf, I felt like it wasn't really fair to kind of just keep her as the only dwarf, even though she had a bunch of standard buddies. And I should mention that I did have Toast at this point. I mean, I've had Toast for over 2.5 years, so she very much is still around. And Toast is a dwarf. However, Toast is also, pretty old. She's not showing her age or anything like that, but realistically, I can't expect Toast to live as long as Jellybean just because, well, they have like 2.5 years difference age-wise. And I also can't expect her to keep up with Jellybean, or, at some point that might happen. Right now, she very much can keep up with Jellybean, but, considering her age, it just isn't really realistic of me to expect her to be around for as long as Jellybean. So I contacted the breeder and told them about the situation, and I told them that I very much wanted to keep all 4 girls, but that I was hoping that I could get another dwarf from one of their proven dwarf lines to be a friend for Jellybean. Well, to be a dwarf companion for Jellybean, but again, everyone lives together in my group, so it's not like they'd be separate. I just wanted to have at least 2 younger dwarfs. And the breeder was fine with this, and that's kind of bringing us into Pumpkinseed's story, because a few weeks later, the breeder showed me a video of some dwarfs, which were all babies that were about 4 weeks old at the time, and she told me that I could pick from one of those, that they were all dwarf females from proven dwarf lines, and that's how I picked out Pumpkinseed. And then a few weeks later, I went and picked her up when she was 8 weeks old, and that is how I got Pumpkinseed. And yeah, that is pretty much these girls' story. I should say this was very much just an accidental case of, the breeder just not being super familiar with dwarf. Basically, the lines that the 3 girls who were thought to be dwarf came from were very large standard lines that had occasionally thrown dwarf. So it was clear that the recessive gene of dwarf was kind of floating around in there somewhere. But it turns out that all 3 of these girls were just kind of runty standards for their age. And of course, as soon as they were kind of older and separated from the other rats and, competing less and all that, they ended up growing a lot and made it very clear that they were standard size rats. And in the case of Jellybean, which again is one of the dwarf girls, and Pumpkinseed, which is the other dwarf girl, both of them came from a line that is just dwarf. So, mating 2 dwarfs together always gets you all dwarf. And talking about them specifically, Carrot is a Havana variegated Rexoid. Jellybean is a black Berkshire Dumbo Rex dwarf. Cinnamon is a Russian blue Berkshire Dumbo Rex. Pistachio is a mink split-caped. And finally, Pumpkinseed Seed is a Martin Dumbo Rex dwarf. And as far as personalities go, Carrot is a very sweet and chill girl. She's kind of similar to Crumb in that she is just super chill and sweet with people. She's also sweet with other rats, but like when you handle her, she just goes completely limp like a little ragdoll cat. She's just freaking adorable. She's also a lot of fun to train with, and we've worked a lot of tricks, especially agility and fetch. Then there is Cinnamon. She's a little bit more nervous, especially outside the cage, but she's generally quite friendly as well. She's very easy to handle, again, very tolerant. She was definitely more neophobic than her sisters when I first got her, but she's gotten a ton better with that. And she's generally a lot more confident now, and she's always just been very sweet with people. It's just been environment that kind of has thrown her off in the past. And she's also a lot of fun to train with and has learned a ton of fun stuff. Then for Pistachio, she is another of the kind of nervous girls. I would say she's more nervous than Cinnamon, although she does have some days where she's super confident, and those days do seem to be increasing as she's gotten older. So I do think she's going to end up being fairly confident. But again, this is more of an environmental thing. She's completely fine with people. She's great at being handled and pet and so forth, and she enjoys coming to cuddle under your blanket as well, which is super sweet. She is a lot of fun to train as well, although because she is definitely the most nervous out of all the girls, she can sometimes be a little bit spooked, and that can make it a little bit harder to train with her. Although typically, as long as we're training something with agility, then she enjoys it so much that she will focus in on that, and then she learns very quickly. Then as for Jellybean, she is one of my favorites in the group because she's extremely outgoing, she's extremely confident. Despite being one of the only dwarfs in my cage currently, she's very bold, and she just really enjoys exploring new things, learning new things. She's extremely fun to train with because she learns super quickly, and she's very, very motivated. Like, she and Cracker are very similar rats, not only in looks, but also in the fact that they learn insanely fast and they focus super well. She's just definitely one of my favorite rats to train with right now, and she's just so sweet and playful, and just I absolutely adore her. Then we have Pumpkin Seed, and Pumpkin Seed is another of my favorites. She is extremely, extremely sweet. She absolutely loves to sit on your hand and groom you and give you kisses, which is just so dang cute. She loves to climb around on you. She loves to play with you. She's also fun to train, although she's not quite as motivated as the other rats, but that's probably going to change because she is the newest to training. And I've had an extremely busy month, so unfortunately I haven't had very much time to train her, and I only got her a few weeks ago, and she's just very, very sweet and human-oriented. And even though she does like my other rats quite a bit, especially my girls Crumb and Cracker, who she has been living with since I brought her home, but yeah, even though she really likes the other rats, she definitely is a very much human-oriented rat, and she just really loves to be with you, which is just really cute and such a sweet thing. And I don't know, she's just a really awesome rat. So yeah, that kind of brings me to the end of this very long video. I'm not sure how long this is going to be, but we'll see what I edit it down to. I hope you guys enjoyed learning about all my rats. And yeah, if you have some of your own rats, feel free to leave their names and stories in the comments. Other than that, I hope to see you guys next time, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!